Welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Hosted by Heather Leigh, PhD, Exploring the Paranormal offers a new, fresh look into paranormal research. Join Heather as she discusses some of the many haunted locations worldwide, discusses why these locations are haunted, hear from paranormal researchers about their personal experiences at these locations. Additionally, Heather takes a journey into the science behind the paranormal, discussing topics such as thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle and how they both affect paranormal activity. Now, your host of Exploring the Paranormal, Dr. Heather Leigh.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is a fabulous Tuesday, and I am super excited about everything I have planned for you guys. We have a great guest coming on in about a half hour, so stay tuned for that. And if you guys have any questions, comments, or anything along the way, just feel free, let me know. Make a post in the comments, and I will make sure to keep an eye on that and answer that throughout the show. Basically, what I wanted to talk today about, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to talk about. My guest is Father Kenneth Torres, so I'm not sure what we're going to talk about later when he's on. With him, the conversation goes wherever it goes. So I've kind of left it open today. But to start it off, I did want to address something because I keep getting lots of emails, messages, and a whole bunch of different things regarding my book. The first book I wrote was The Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns. People keep asking me, hey, Heather, where can we find it? What can we, how can we get it? And, the other question is, can we get an autographed copy? I wanted to let everyone know it is available through the History Press or Arcadia Publishing. You can also purchase it at, I think it's on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Amazon, of course, has it. And then you could also reach out to me directly. I do have several copies that I can send autographed. The book is $21.99 on all the websites. But if you order it through me, it'll be a flat rate of $25, but that includes shipping and the autograph. On the other sites, you may have to pay shipping, so it comes to about the same price. So just let me know. And people, if you want to know what's in this book, it's amazing. We got this idea. I originally started, we were in Real Haunts Ghost Towns, and it was a lot of fun. We filmed through all the different ghost towns in Southern Nevada, and it kind of inspired me to reach out to the History Press and see if they would be interested in it. And they loved the idea. So we turned it into a book, but it's more than just a look at, the haunted aspects. I do have a section in here on what makes a ghost town, and all ghost towns haunted. So I talk about that. And one of my favorite stories is about the Tommyknockers. And you'll see that scattered through the book, but it also talks about the different locations and the history behind each one. So I don't just say, okay, let's say the Goldfield Hotel, which is a big part of this book. The Goldfield Hotel is haunted, X, Y, and Z happens, all these other things are, going on. I talk about the history. Like, we do have, there's room 109 where there's activity of a spirit named Elizabeth. Rumor has it, and when you look back on the history, legend states that Elizabeth was a prostitute who got pregnant by the owner of the hotel. He chained her up in in that room until she had her baby. And now when people investigate that room, there are, strange occurrences. Their camera equipment stops working. They hear cries of a woman, which is because her baby was taken away from her and then thrown down a mine shaft, supposedly in the basement, but the basement doesn't have a mine shaft. So it would have been the nearest one was about 30 yards away. And that, she's crying out for her baby. So that's just one story that I go back into the history. I just basically take a deep dive into everything. There's more to the paranormal world than just the activity. You have the history behind it that fuels it. Why, it goes into, a whole bunch of different things. And it also looks into today, why ghost towns are still haunted. You think about it, if you have all this, the ghost towns had energy. They had so much energy behind them. It was people loved their towns. They were excited to start a new life. Then you had the Wild West mentality, and the energy there, good, bad, negative, positive. It was all around. That made a major imprint on the earth. And that goes to throw a little science into this show, which I promise, guys, I will start talking about science in future episodes. But to talk about science a little bit, we have it's called the Superman theory. And if you guys remember, several years back, they put the entire Bible or the entire Encyclopedia Britannica on a small quartz crystal. And it recorded the energy onto that crystal. The Superman theory talks about how Earth is made up of mostly crystals. And the activity that happens on the Earth gets absorbed into those crystals. And those crystals replay what happens over and over. And so areas where there's higher concentration of crystals, such as mining towns and all of that, they seem to have a higher concentration of activity. And that makes it's just really interesting. I really love that theory. And I do have an episode that I am going to talk about that solely, but that's kind of an introduction into that. And so these ghost towns, with all that energy, soaked up into the environment, it just replays over and over. One example is that you have Goldfield, of course. Goldfield was a big part of the book because it's one of the most haunted locations in Nevada. Wyatt Earp and Virgil Earp were there. There have been reports of seeing a man walking down the street with, your typical hat that you would expect to see Wyatt or Virgil wearing, and then the big mustache that Virgil was known for having. And he just slowly walks down the street until he disappears. That was the area that he was known. He was assistant or deputy sheriff of the town before he passed. And that was what he did. He walked down the street. So is that really the haunting of Virgil Earp walking up and down the street back and forth? It could be, because he really enjoyed his final days in Goldfield. And he wanted to move to Goldfield because he absolutely loved the town. But it also could have been the imprint of him doing the same thing day after day, hour after hour during his patrol. So several different things could go into the different hauntings in these towns. And then getting back to the Tommyknockers. This is my favorite story. It kind of resembles, if you think about it, the Gremlins during World War I and World War II, that, planes, aircraft, tanks suddenly malfunction. They blamed it on the Gremlins. We always joke around about how, something's missing, a little troll took it or something like that. That's what Tommyknockers are similar to. But what makes it interesting is Tommyknockers have a different story depending on the culture. So if you think about the Germans, they were called, it translates to mountain ghost. And they roam the mountains, causing, mischievous trouble. Then you have, there's one legend where it's, they're believed to be the, I'm drawing a complete blank here. Sorry, guys. The Tommyknockers are believed to be those who crucified Christ, and they were sentenced to a life in the mines as their punishment. And in return, they, knocked on the walls, caused havoc, stole toys. But the one interesting thing about that one is, in this culture, they don't haunt on Sundays or Jewish holidays. So it's just kind of interesting how it makes you think that these ghosts or these Tommyknockers, or they also call them brownies, they only haunted on certain days. So is that a self-manifestation? Because ghosts, anybody who's watching, if you've gone on a paranormal investigation, 100% that these ghosts do not come on our time. We can't say, we can say go away, but, if they don't want to go away, they're not going to go away. We can't put up a sign that says closed on Sundays, please don't haunt us. If I were a ghost, that would entice me more to haunt you on those days. But it's just really interesting how that was. But in Nevada, the legend of the Tommyknockers was, if you heard the 3 knocks of the Tommyknocker, get out of the mine. And this could be easily explainable by natural occurrences. You have the wood beams holding up the mine, the rocks, and as the rocks, start to sag and creak and the wood starts to break, you hear knocking noises. That's a sign that the mine's going to collapse. But they said it was the Tommyknockers who saved them. They heard the knocks, they rushed out. The mine collapsed shortly after the last person got out. Sometimes not everybody was able to get out. Other times, lunches would go missing, tools would go missing, and they would blame it on the Tommyknockers. So it's kind of a mixed opinion on whether the Tommyknockers were good or bad. And that's all explained in the book that I wrote. And it's just another, actually, I'm gonna babble on here this morning. It was way too early for me today, so bear with me. One of my favorite places ever to investigate so far was the Florence mine. And that was in also in Goldfield. Very beautiful mine. John Arick, who owns it, did a great job restoring it. It's not an operating mine in the aspect of it's still mining for gold and silver. It's operational in the aspect of he offers tours. We were the first team to go in and investigate. I think as of now, we might still be the only team. I'm not sure because it's been a while since I've talked to John. And we were there filming a TV pilot. And it's just, in addition to being gorgeous, it is probably, everybody says Goldfield Hotel and the Goldfield High School are the most haunted locations in Goldfield. And I truly believe that this mine is that. You have some experiences that I had there is we were in the hoist house, heard men talking. And again, that could be residual energy. I went outside, walked around the whole building. Nobody was outside. And we conducted an EVP session, but we got nothing. So that leads me to believe that it was residual or I scared them off. We were also walking through, trying to think, it was the mill house. And it was weird. Something kept bringing our eyes up to the upper beams and it was like something wanted us to look up there. And when we looked up there, there was a noose hanging. And we've got the owner and the owner's son who does the tours and asked, hey, has that always been there? And they claimed it hadn't been there. I don't know if it had or hadn't, but it was just very interesting that something was trying to draw our attention up there because you don't always think of looking up when you're in these locations. And then one of the scariest events that I've ever experienced was in one of the mine shafts. This mine shaft had collapsed. Nobody really knows what happened fully, but from what I understand, after we investigated this mine shaft, we were told that not all the men got out. That explains what happened to me when I had crawled further back to the collapsed area. Suddenly I was feeling not really claustrophobic, but I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was being crushed. I was hearing screaming and cries, and I started crying myself, and they had to pull me out of that area. And once they got me about 5 feet away, I was perfectly fine. So it was the way it's been explained to me, because at the time, this was a while ago, so I wasn't really in tune with what I can do. And they had told me that it was me, the miners, trying to tell me exactly what they had gone through, and I was reliving their final moments with them, is basically how it was worded. So it's kind of interesting to feel that way. And it's just like Goldfield, it suffered several fires, this mine, but it survived, which is, really interesting. And when I was sleeping in the mine owner's home, because he let us spend the night in his home, I was woken up to someone screaming into my ear. I didn't start the fire. The other investigator I was with, sound asleep on the floor. The mine owner's kids were also camping out with us because they thought it was really neat to be camping out with ghost hunters. They were all camping out in the living room floor, and everyone else was sound asleep. So I think that was someone who might have been blamed for either starting the Goldfield fires or for starting the fires at the Florence mine. So looking at the time real quick. Okay. So real quick, again, you can get my book or, message me. You can find me on Facebook, and it would be at Dr. Heather Leigh, and it would be Dr. Heather Leigh. You could also go to my website, which is heatherleigh.phd.com. And I hope you guys enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed writing it. Now, shifting focus just a little bit is my next book. I just sent off to the publisher. Yay. I'm so looking forward to this one coming out. It's called they changed the title on me, Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley. And this one covers everything from mob stories to, even though I included the Hoover Dam in here, I did include bits and pieces of Boulder City in the new book, but not as much because I didn't want to duplicate it in both books. It includes one of my favorite locations in the Vegas Valley, which is McCaw School of Mines. The story with this one, this is funny. we really had no idea this place was haunted. I had a suspicion, but I had volunteered at this location, and I was in charge of. I ran a website back in Vegas that was directed towards kids and kids activities. So they had me come in and volunteer when they would do their open houses, and I would bring kids crafts and kids things for kids to do. And one day I had said, because they were setting up for their Halloween, they do like almost like a 2-week long Halloween thing where at night they open up, it's an above ground simulated mine. If you guys ever get a chance, search McCaw School of Mines in Henderson, Nevada, and you'll see this. But it's an above ground simulated mine that you once you step through the front doors, you feel like you're underground. Absolutely amazing place. I loved it. I spent as much time there as I could. And we kind of joked around with them, and they knew what I did, but at the time it was kind of like on the side. I really wasn't doing it full time like I am now. But they asked me if I could come and do the kids' crafts again during their Halloween celebration. And I said, sure. And I said, hey, you know what? Wouldn't it be fun to show the kids exactly what I do? And I brought the team in that I was with at the time, and we did what we thought were mock investigations. We were just going to take the kids through the mine, every hour, because the line was out the door. And this place is huge, or not really huge, but big enough to where the line out the door was probably a good 50 to 100 people. And it was like that all night long when we did this. So every hour they would shut down the haunted mine and let us go through for 5 minutes with a group of kids. And we were doing, we were just showing them the equipment. We kind of had them practice. We had them ask questions. And it was really interesting because my son was there. I mean, he was 16 at the time. So he was a junior investigator on the team. So he was helping out. And he, the leader was like, hey, Aiden asked some questions. So he's like, his first question was, is the earth round or flat? And he actually got an answer. It's round. And then he asked if a tomato was a fruit or a vegetable. He got the answer. It came back vegetable. So it was really interesting to see, first of all, my son interacting and having fun, but all the kids because we used the spirit box for this, and their eyes just lit up. They were so excited. And then throughout the rest of the night, we were having experiences as a paranormal investigative group doing these with interactions via the spirit box. Later that night, we did EVP and video sessions. We actually, upon reviewing that evidence, we had activity. And after the mine closed, we took all the volunteers back into the mine, and we stayed for an extra hour and conducted a full investigation. And the activity we got from there was just absolutely amazing. So moving on from that point, we started hosting, different events. We had one huge event planned, actually 2 huge events planned. We had a big, not really a meet and greet, but it was like a 5-6 hour event. We were going to go in, it was a paranormal 101. We were going to train everybody on how to do stuff and then do an investigation of the mine, which I'm hoping to go back out to Vegas and do this soon. And then we also had a glow in the dark Easter egg hunt with paranormal investigators. And these were all ready to go, but then of course COVID hit. COVID ruined a lot of stuff for everybody. And we ended up having to cancel the events. The team kind of fell apart and we all went our own ways. And it's just really interesting, but all of us were able to come to a consensus that was a very very active, paranormally active location. So if you guys, again, ever get a chance, just Google search McCaw School of Mines in Henderson. And I think their website might be McCawSchoolofMines.org or McCaw. Anyway, Google search it just to make sure you get the right one. And keep your eyes open because we're hoping next spring that I'm able to get out there and do a book signing like I was supposed to last spring or this fall and get things, doing a whole bunch of different events. I'm partnering with a whole bunch of great people. So hopefully that all works out as planned. I mean, as you guys know, things don't always work out as planned, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you'll start seeing things for events in Vegas and then as well as here in Florida. Because with the new book I have coming out, actually the next book I'm writing, which is due, I have to have it to the publisher December 1st. And that's Haunted Florida Lighthouses. And it takes you on a tour of all the lighthouses in Florida and those that are haunted and those that are not haunted. It kind of gives a brief history. But I think I've only found 1 or 2 lighthouses out of all of them that so far don't have any paranormal activity attached to it. So, and I'm still diving into those, and I think I might be able to find some fun information on that. So, I still have about 10 minutes before my guest arrives. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm always happy to answer them. And if you guys have any questions that you want answered on the air, you can also go to my Facebook page at Dr. Heather Leigh, and it's just DR, the abbreviated doctor, and then send me a message with your question, and I will do it in my mailbag session. This episode kind of doesn't follow my typical format because usually you guys know I do the introduction. I have a topic to talk about, which is kind of hard because Father Kenneth and I didn't really come up with a topic. And then I recommend a book. It's kind of hard because I'm recommending my own book. So yeah, shameless plugs here. I'm sorry, guys. And then I do a mailbag answer question, but I answer the question that people are always asking me about my books. So you guys can expect everything. Real quick, before I forget, we will not be airing next week. I think it's next week. Let me just double check the calendar. Yeah, next week we will not be airing. There was some scheduling conflicts and I won't be here. And so we will be back in 2 weeks. I'm still working on my guest and to get them secured. And if I don't get them secured, I do have some backup guests that we will be bringing. So I really can't tell you who I'm expecting to have, but people, just to give you guys an idea, I've been reaching out. We are going to have Nicole Gaspard, who wasn't able to make last week. She will be, we're trying to find a date for her to come back. I'm working on Daryl Marston. He's picking a date out of the dates I gave him. I'm also talking to, I've messaged back and forth with Brandon Elvis in the past, and I'm thinking I'm bringing him back, but I know he's moving right now, so that's kind of hard to get him on. And just a whole bunch of things. I'm actually, the school I went to, Institute of Metaphysical and Humanistic Science, I'm working on finding Dr. Kelly, who is the founder of the school and the lead instructor, to get on the show. And he is, in my eyes, an expert on thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle. So that would be that perfect episode to have him on. So definitely a lot of stuff going on. And I'm like so excited. I'm so glad you guys are here. And I know we talk a lot about going to haunted locations and doing paranormal investigations, but when you're in this field, make sure you're in it for the right reasons. Don't get in this field to, know what you want to do in this field, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's okay if you're a hobbyist and a ghost hunter, or, and you just want to go out to the different locations and experience it. That's fine. If you're, that way, find a group, reserve a place, but always be, respectful. Just because you're a hobbyist doesn't mean you can't still do it the right way. And then we have, part-time paranormal investigators that just go when they can. They, try to do it. And then you have full-timers that's all they do. They go on investigations. They help clients. They, like me, I write books. I do research. There's a whole bunch of different levels. So just make sure you pick the level that works best for you and be comfortable in that level. All of the levels, that's what I call them. I call, you have the hobbyist, the part-timer, and the full-timer. So it's one of those things where it's whatever fits you, do you. And that, that goes on with life. I was reading something today. I can't remember who posted it, but they said, do whatever makes you happy. Don't dwell on the negative. If something bad happens, I know, trust me, I know it's hard to move on, but just move on. Do you find something that makes you happy? You could also, the other thing that I saw that was posted is surround yourself with people who make you feel better. If you are around people who make you feel sad all the time or just are constantly making you feel upset, those aren't your people. Find your people. These are the people who, love you, make you happy. Of course, we always have our ups and downs, even with the people who are, considered our people, but just find those who make you a better person, those who push you to be that better person, those who support you on everything you do, not those that belittle you. not anyone who doesn't believe in what you do. You know, it's, I don't really want to say negative Nellies or whatever the term is, but just again, be you. So whichever level of paranormal researcher you want to be, you know, be you. Do what you want to do and be you. And, you know, like I said, have fun doing it. But the point that I was trying to get to with that one is, if you do decide that you want to be, whether it's a part-time paranormal investigator and or a full-time one, make sure you do you in the right way. If you want to help clients, make sure you're there to help clients. You know, don't be going into a client's home looking for that thrill of having a paranormal experience. Go into the client's home knowing that you're trying to help them. You know, even if you don't get any paranormal activity in the home, the client, their pain is real. So you need to be sympathetic, understand, talk to them, get them, help point them in the right direction to get the help that they need, whether it's, you know, psychological or, you know, some places I've been, clean up their house. Just, you know, make sure that whatever the client needs, you help them, whether it's paranormal or not. We can always point them in the right direction to get help. And sometimes, yeah, I know we can't always clear the paranormal activity, especially if the client doesn't do what we've asked them to do, or they just don't want to get the help. Or some people we've helped is we've gone in, we've cleansed the home felt great for several weeks, but they went back to communicating with the spirits and using Ouija boards and all of that. You know, it's nothing wrong against Ouija boards as long as you know how to use them correctly. And that's a topic for another episode. But it's, you know, if they're not going to help themselves, we can't really do much. And we need to understand that. It's like one client I had, heartbreaking case. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. She was having activity, and the way she described it was, it reminded me of Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. She said he was a little round guy, or there was two little round guys with little pointed ears, you know, thin, long hands, 3 fingers, and thin legs. And they were always bothering her, you know, pestering her, even going as far as saying molesting her and all of that stuff. And one team went in, did an investigation. They got some activity, but that activity could easily have been explained, because it wasn't really full voices. It was, most of it came from a spirit box, and it was just 1-syllable words. So that easily could have been it changing stations. Then on the other hand, we went in, my husband and I, a few weeks later, and we videotaped her and did a video interview. And she was saying, they're bothering me right now. They're bothering me all the time. But yet, and she was like, and I can never sit still. But yet the entire time we were there, she was sitting still. We searched the whole house, did a few EVP sessions. And during the EVP session, we actually got the client's voice telling us to get out. Well, the client was standing right next to us and didn't say anything at the time. So it was kind of like her, you know, psychically imprinting on our EVP recorder that she wanted us out of the home. And we also found was strange is that we weren't allowed to investigate the half of the house where her son was. We could only investigate her room and the living room. So it was kind of really, you know, a lot of questions, a lot of, you know, things that we were wondering. And we had asked the client, you know, hey, you know, we're not saying you're crazy, but you do need to go get a, you know, evaluation by a physician and kind of make sure there's nothing wrong with you. She refused to do that. And she also continued to refuse. Sorry about that, guys. She also refused to let us, you know, investigate, because we kept asking, can we investigate your whole home? She's like, no, I'm not, you know, allowed to do that. You know, my son doesn't want that. He just wants his part of the house, you know, to be his. So we get that. We understand that, you know, people want privacy. But it kind of like, we weren't able to do a full investigation. And again, she was refusing to get the help. And I spent on the phone with her crying, I'm not crazy. And it was just so heartbreaking. So make sure if you're going to help clients that you don't get attached to them. Try, you know, be friendly, but try not to make friends with them, and get them the help that they need. You know, even if it's not if you go in and you realize it's not paranormal, don't ditch them. Kind of, you know, encourage them, you know, say, hey, have you seen your doctor lately? We're not doctors or psychiatrists. At least I'm not, and a lot of the paranormal researchers are not. So make sure we point them in the right direction. Otherwise, go for it and be happy investigating public locations or going to museums and different areas like that. So, okay, we are at the half hour mark, and we are going to take a break. And when we come back, I will be joined with Father Kenneth. So I'll see you guys soon.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK-DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And I am excited to bring Father Kenneth Torres onto my show, and I'm going to let him introduce you. But all I have to say real quick is he is an amazing guy. I've worked with him on the Warren Legacy Foundation for a couple of years now, and I'm so excited. Sorry to wake you up so early today.
No, it's all right. Good morning, Heather, my lovely sister.
Good morning.
It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. Thank you so much. These few years have been quite a journey, right? Ups and downs. We've seen the organization change, and quite honestly, Heather, you're one of the main reasons why the foundation has become so much more functional and much more efficient when it comes to the paperwork and just in general. And so I hope you're enjoying your vacation, your time off, and
yes, I'm actually getting a lot caught up between getting my Vegas book written and finishing up my Florida book.
That's awesome.
It's not really time off, but
yeah. Well, you're working, it gives you time to focus on your personal endeavors, and it's always good to take a little break. I find myself, even in the past, you need to take a few days off. There's times when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, today is a rough day for me. I have directors for me. I'm not going to answer any messages. I'm just going to take a break and relax. But I've been up since 6:30. Actually, so I got home from the Dark Waters Paracon in upstate New York, which quite lovely. I was up for like 24 hours. Apparently, the airport in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut, they don't have any flights from 11 p.m. until 5 a.m. So I was hoping I'd go there and get a red-eye flight. Nope, I just sat in the lobby sleeping and got home. I rested. I went to sleep at 8 o'clock last night, and I woke up at 6:30 this morning. I slept like a bear. Extremely tired. Extremely tired.
Yeah, I'm bummed I missed it, but I don't know.
I think it's gonna be good next year. There's a couple of wonderful opportunities. To show. It was nice. So where do we start? What do you want to know? What does the audience want to know?
Well, let's start off with introducing you. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what got you into the paranormal field.
Okay, so my name is Father Kenneth Torres. For all intents and purposes, it's also Archbishop. I'm in charge of a independent Catholic organization called the Solomonic Order of St. Michael the Archangel. I'm the Vicar General, the second in charge. I'm a chaplain. I am a veteran. I am a regional director for the Legacy Foundation, and I'm a paranormal investigator. And yes, I do have a doctorate degree, which is different. I have a religious degree, which is different than an honorary degree, and it's different from an academic degree. And so I do have a master's in ministry. So the paranormal for me, where do I begin? So the paranormal is an interesting thing because for me, I have a background growing up. My grandmother was a high priestess in Santeria, which is an Afro-Caribbean practice from Puerto Rico. And so growing up, I would witness my grandmother doing all these magic rituals. And for me, it was one of those things that were eye-opening. And there's a lot of supernatural factors that I saw, but even until this day, I'm not sure if it was my childhood imagination or, my grandmother really was a strong practitioner. I do remember that there were times when I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would go into another room and it'd be like a forest. a forest with a running river in the middle. To this day, I spoke to my aunt about it a few months ago. We were estranged, and so we fixed our ties. There were some bonds that had to be broken, and so we spoke. And the one thing that we did come to an agreement was like, Auntie, do you remember seeing these things? And she goes, yeah, I remember seeing the same thing you're seeing. We would literally wake up in the middle of the night, as I mentioned earlier, not to sound repetitious, we'd go into another room and there'd be a forest. Or there would be times where we would walk into the living room, and in the living room, there'd be a babbling brook in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the road. Whatever, floor, road, I'm sorry. Still on my first cup of coffee. And so it was pretty interesting to go through life experiencing that. My second experience was I was with my dad. We were watching the original Tim Curry. No, actually, we started watching Legend with Tom Cruise. Tim Curry played the devil part. I remember one time I was laying down in bed and my dad was in the middle of the night. And, I looked under the bed and I saw the Tim Curry devil, and it pulled me under the bed. And so my dad and I were in the struggle. He was trying to pull me out from under the bed. So I don't know what it was, but I do know that after that little ordeal, there was like 3 scratch marks on my arm. And so that was kind of the thing where like my dad was like, yeah, I don't really think it was you falling under the bed, because it was he even to this day, he affirms that it was a power struggle. He was trying to pull me out from under the bed. Something was literally trying to pull me under. And I do attribute that a lot to the traumatic events that I've had growing up. There was a strong line in my family of powerful Caribbean practicing, which is a lot of supernatural elements to it. And that was one incident. But the one that really put things into perspective for me as a 12-year-old person that got me into the paranormal is we moved to a place in Paterson, New Jersey, down the crossway from John F. Kennedy High School. Now, Paterson, New Jersey is known as Silk City. Alexander Hamilton, one of the founding fathers of our country, founded the city. And so there's this beautiful natural waterfalls that's running through the city. So, I both know that water, can be a conduit for some type of energy. One time, my dad and I, we moved into this house, and it's my dad, my stepmom, my little sister, and we're outside riding our bike, and we look upstairs, and on the second floor, there's a young girl looking out the window. And we're like, well, that's not right, because my little sister's right here riding the bike. So my stepmother stays with my sister outside, and I follow my dad upstairs. It's like, oh yeah, my dad's about to, punch somebody or find somebody, being a little macho man. So I follow him up the stairs, and as soon as we enter the house, walk up the stairs, there's the kitchen. Immediate right, there's a living room, and in the immediate right, there's a hallway that leads upstairs, and there's those stairs. And as soon as we're going up those stairs, my dad all of a sudden just flies back like 20 feet and hits his head. There was some type of unexplained supernatural force that pushed my dad or kicked him off of the stairs, enough to give him a heart attack and enough to make him unconscious. So we go to the hospital. He did have a heart attack. A few weeks goes by, nothing happens. Then what ends up happening is there's like these little snippets of little things that happen around the house. We were hearing the footsteps, we were hearing laughing, we were hearing just anomalous things that you couldn't explain. And one time, my dad and I, my sister, we were watching TV. We were watching television in our living room. So we're sitting in front, and then across the way, you can see the kitchen. And in the living room, there was a TV, but you could see directly to the kitchen. We were watching, I remember to this day, we were watching Tim Curry's original It. Mm-hmm. And so we're watching the movie, and my little sister walks across the kitchen, running. And we're like, I won't say her name. We're like, sis, you have to come over here. We're watching a movie. But my little sister is like, hey, we're right. She was right here sitting down. This whole time, we saw her run across the room, the kitchen. She was there in front of us the whole time. My dad goes, okay, I'm going to go check it out. And so I remember when he went across to go check my sister, there was a loud crash. Upon arrival and further investigation, there was a crucifix inside the cross of Jesus Christ turned upside down and shattered. So we're like, okay, that was kind of weird. Don't think much of it. Another day goes by. My dad is going up the stairs. And then as he's going up the stairs, my little sister's tricycle just lunges at him. My little sister's tricycle was on a hitch 20 feet around the corner, and it rolled 20 feet, turned the corner, went down the stairs by itself. There's no way that, okay, I guess I surmise that maybe the possibility that it could have unlatched itself, and due to some cosmic cosmic force or gravity or inertia. It could have just caused it to roll 20 feet and turn around the corner, but we couldn't find an explanation. So what ended up happening is that bicycle, my sister's tricycle, it hits him in the face and it knocks him out cold. It was kind of weird. So, we were going through these different events, and the one thing that I do remember saying is, because there was a church across the way, and we asked the pastor, or I think at the time I couldn't remember who it was. It was a pastor or a priest. Couldn't remember what denomination it was, but he said, "You guys are the 5th family to have lived there within 2 years." I remember that specifically. He says, "Well, there's I don't know what it is, but families they come in and they just go. They can't live there. There's a problem. I don't really know what it is. I've heard stories, but," he goes, "I don't believe in that stuff." One day, my sister alleges that throughout this series of events, there was a little girl that was coming out from under her bed in a purple dress and was telling her to do things. Was teaching her how to curse, was teaching her how to say bad things. And so at 4 years old, she was cursing at us, she was saying different things, and she would have scratch marks. And my little sister alleges that the little girl in the purple dress said, "I'm going to teach you how to kill your family." One day, my dad was watching TV at 3 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, odd hours of the night. He alleges he sees my little sister standing at the door, and her eyes glow, and he starts running at her. But within that, he can see that there is a 18-inch kitchen knife. My sister was under some type of influence, and she was going to attack the family, potentially kill us with the kitchen knife. So we're like, okay, something's got to give. And throughout that process, we had a dog, a Japanese Akita. His name was Zuki. There's the idea that animals can sense these things. And there were always times when it seemed like the dog would just give us these signs of something that was there. He would be on guard. He would look at a certain corner. He would focus there. One day we got home and our dog was missing. We couldn't find him. So we searched and we searched for weeks. We went to the animal pound. We couldn't find him. But there was no way that he was missing because all the doors were locked. Everything in the house was locked. The front door was locked. The back door leading down to the patio was locked. And then one day, we gave up. It's about a month, maybe 2 months later. We go down and we're going to have a barbecue. And we found our dog. And this is for the audience. It's a little rough. We found our dog. We found our dog, Zuki. He was crucified and gutted open downstairs in the back wall with all his internals going in, sticking out. And so that was harsh. It was rough. So we were like, you know what? Enough is enough. We have the local priest come in. We had my grandmother come in. We pray for the house. We bless the house. And I remember to this day that there was just a heaviness in that house. But as soon as we did the prayers and we did the blessings, there was a loud guttural sound that came from the building. And once that loud guttural sound finished, it seemed like the environment got lighter. And we stayed there for about a month and nothing happened. So it seems like the activity stopped. And I'll finish off with this. A few months later, before we finally move out, my dad was looking through the closet to get all the clothes. And in some homes in New England, there's the closet and there's some type of little door that I don't know what that little door is for. It's a creepy little door. I've never liked mine. So my dad goes and he sees the little door. He opens it up and there's a box inside. And when he looks at the box, he opens it up. It's pictures of naked children in used dirty underwear. So it seems like that the people that had lived there before us were pedophiles, and they were molesting children and they were trafficking children. So my dad turned it into the police, and I don't know what happened, but I do remember that could have been a piece of the puzzle for the people that lived there before us for the suspicion. So that is how I got into the paranormal. Long story short.
It's funny because we all have our stories that, I don't think I've run into one paranormal researcher or investigator that didn't have a paranormal experience to get them interested.
No, I mean, it's just growing up, even growing up in the East Coast, it's haunted. I mean, everywhere in the East Coast is literally haunted. So that's why I loved going back to Plattsburgh, New York, because everyone is like, yeah, my house is haunted. My house is haunted. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm like, God, I wasn't going crazy because I must have spoken to about 40 to 50 people at this event, and everyone there had some type of story or an anomalous event that they couldn't explain. And I go, oh yeah, the East Coast is definitely haunted. So now I'm making it my mission to move back home to the East Coast so that I can be more haunted.
Yeah. It's like that here in Florida too. I was so glad. I mean, granted, Nevada, everywhere you go is haunted, but no one talks about it in Nevada.
Yeah.
It's, I don't want to know my business is haunted because no one will come to it, or, but in Florida, they're so open and they'll tell you anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's that saying? We don't talk about Bruno.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's I find it interesting now because, I do think that there's a market for that now. You can, as a business owner, I think there's a lure to it. As long as there isn't any danger, look at the Washer Club, look at these other places.
Yep.
The main attraction is the possibility of having some type of supernatural encounter. So what do we take with that? I think that's where we come in as paranormal investigators and say, hey, look at, yeah, you have a haunted building, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's demonic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's this and that. And I do think that we can coexist. I mean, these are energies that are no longer with us, or even just the residual entities. I mean, I think we can coincide with them. And I think it's a beautiful thing once you understand the history, besides the dark part.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because one location where we called it our training spot. Yeah. And they didn't want, we actually had to sign non-disclosures. Every time we would go have a meeting there, we would do our team meetings and we would do training and practice investigations. And they didn't want anyone to know the place was haunted because families came there often.
What's the name of the place again?
Yeah. And I had so many interesting experiences. It's a location. Oh, you weren't here in Florida with us, but we shared a story when Aiden was on stage with us about his experience in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, the bathroom was haunted. Everything, bathrooms typically are haunted at locations. I noticed that in my Vegas book, every place I was writing about, the bathroom had X, Y, and Z. But it's just interesting how some people just don't want to know. But, I know McCaw School of Mines, they're a museum that have kids come there, and they were like, hey, yeah, tell everybody we're haunted. And now they've picked up a side business to where they do ghost tours at night.
And you know what? And that's okay. It's beneficial. I think it could be informative. I think it's educational, and I know for much like you and I, I'm strictly against the whole paranormal tourism in the sense of treating animals like ghosts. But I do think that there's a market for proper education. I do think that say, hey, you know what? This place is haunted. You might experience something here. Let's go ahead and let's give you a tour. This is the history. We do this with respect to the spirits and but behind, your head in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, cool. Maybe I might run across a ghost.
Right.
That's what happened with us with the Valcor Hotel in upstate New York. Might have been psychosomatics, but Joe Frankie was staying in room number 3, which is allegedly one of the most haunted rooms. And I was staying in room number 1, and that was another alleged haunted room. Of course, Joe Frankie didn't experience anything. The guy's like, yeah, everyone knows the Joe Frankie, even the spirits. So they're like, yeah, nothing's happening. But as I was laying in the room, I was taking a shower, and I get out the shower, and I heard knocking on the door, and knocked 3 times. Da, 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 da. All right, on my way, Joe, and I open the door, and no one's there. And then so when you go out the hallway, the room, it's just a storage room. There's nothing in there, just a storage room. And then the room that was supposed to be between us, allegedly there was somebody staying there, but there wasn't. It was reserved, but no one ever showed up. But I heard phantom voices. I heard knocking. I heard footsteps. I heard phantom airplane sounds. I think, we took a couple of pictures at the old cemetery across the way. We did some ghost photography. Didn't catch anything, but it was nice. It was nice. I had some experiences, but it's kind of cool. You kind of get giggity as a kid, as an adult. You're like kind of kid-like. You're like, all right, cool. I had some type of experience, and it wasn't anything off the wall where it directly affects you. You're in the presence of some residual energy. A very beautiful historic place, and I just fell in love with it. And my perspective has changed a lot this past weekend. And for the good as well.
You're going to notice that happening the more events that you do, because every event I do, it was even funny yesterday. I'm a firm believer that cemeteries, they can be haunted, but they're not really haunted.
Yeah.
And we did a photo shoot yesterday in one of the local cemeteries here. And I pulled out the dowsing rods just to make to stage the photo. And just for, giggles, I said, hey, if you're here, can you cross the rods?
Ooh.
And all of a sudden the rods crossed and I get this big grin on my face and I turn to the camera. I'm like, it's moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, energy. I mean, energy is all
Yeah.
around us. We are all energy. But it doesn't always necessarily mean it's a demon. Not every orb is a demon. Oh my gosh.
How many
People
orb
are-
photos did you see at the event?
well, well, maybe one or two. I've got orbs, dude. Orbs, and
Yeah.
it was cool. But it was an interesting moment, and it was an educational moment because we were able to represent the foundation and let people know, hey, these things are natural. I think for me at this point in my career, the supernatural is more natural for me. It's a lot more easier to deal with the living than it is to deal with the dead. But herbs, Valentine is another wonderful gentleman that I met at the event. He's going to be putting in an application as well.
Mm-hmm.
But orbs, I mean, orbs are one of those things that I heard so much about it at the events. We've got these orbs, we're catching this, we're catching that. And, and you could see the look on the face of these people. And I wasn't trying to burst their bubble, but it was just an excitement. It was a giggity.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this thing like, okay, all right. We have an amateur and paranormal investigator. We have people that are now starting to get into this field and they're catching these little orbs. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I know exactly what you're doing. I know that feeling. And it was very good to see like these childlike things, but then that's where the education part comes in. I go, hey, you know what? It's exciting, but just know that orbs aren't always orbs. Most of the time, it can't be dust. It can't be just a dirty house. And even if you do catch an orb, it's not your dead grandmother. It's not the fallen angel Belial or none of that stuff. None of that stuff, And I always reference back to what I've seen on television. Science has already proved the existence of orbs. They're just natural balls of energy that float within the ions of our, hemisphere or our Earth, whatever. So I'm not a science doctor. I'm just a religion doctor. So I don't know all the technical savvy terms.
Yeah. No, I mean, the way I try to teach people on the orbs, it's like in the photo, it has to be reflecting light.
Yeah.
So you would see a reflection of light on something around it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, chances are it's not a real orb. But,
Yeah.
an orb is one of those things where people... it causes arguments is all I can say.
It is. It's either orbs or aliens. It's funny because like, my dogs, we have a security system. And then my wife is like, babe, look, there's an orb. I go, oh, okay. So, because these things will make our cameras go off. And, I have three dogs, right? And a cat. And I think that, because of their positive energy, that there's like little positive, I think there's positive things floating around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see my camera go off and I see like this little anomaly go by, and I was like, okay, it's either a bug or an orb, whatever. Even if it is an orb, to me, that's a good sign, because these are innocent creatures, and they're having fun. And it normally happens when they're playing around, heckling each other, playing tug of war or tossing the ball. That's when I normally get these like things on the camera. Sometimes they'll start wrestling with one another. And to me, that's just like an innocence. And to me, that's like saying, okay, there's something supernatural that's making them happy, that's making them play around. And so I view it as a little something different.
Yeah. Yep. No. And and that's what we're in this field for, is we all have our own opinions. We all have and we just need to get the rest of the field to not belittle.
Well, and I tell you what,
along.
And I tell you what, there was a lot of misconceptions, I guess. You go into these events, and I always thought that there was probably going to be some apprehension with an archbishop being there, and not in a bad way. But, as soon as I started speaking to everyone, there was a couple of Satanists there, Patty Negri, Richard Leigh. He'll correct me. Richard Leigh, the gentleman psychic. He'll say just like that.
I love him.
Richard Leigh. He's going to probably text me later and say, Ken, so you pronounce it right. Hopefully Richard Leigh. And Dennis Morningstar, Christina Bloom, another wonderful person, people from Gem Goddess, Jaxie, a lot of wonderful people with these diverse backgrounds. And I was talking to them, and there was a lot of misconceptions about the Archbishop being there. But I told him, I'm all about ecumenism, and I'm all about understanding one another, and it's all about respect. To me, I don't care what you believe in. It's not my job to judge you. It's my job to love you. Simple as that. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what you follow. But as long as we can do it with respect to one another, that's all I care about. We may not always agree in theology or who God is, and that's all subjective. There's over 3,000 religions in the world. So for me to think that the God that I believe in has to be everyone's God. It's ignorance.
Mhm.
It's ignorance, you know, and that's one thing that we teach in the foundation. That's why our symbol in the foundation has all these different, it's a culmination of these different belief systems, because it's highly important to understand where everyone comes from. You know, if you look at things from a linear point of view, then you're never going to grow. You're just going to be another paranormal TV team, you know, that's whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of paranormal TV, there's this new show that just came out.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't watched it yet. I've been hesitant. I usually put those shows on as background noise.
No.
But I kind of have been hesitant to watch this one.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, and we won't get into the details because it's our counterparts. But as far as I know, Ed and Lorraine Warren have never taught anything about a 28-day cycle. Never. Yeah. But that's subject to opinion. Maybe there's something there that we didn't know. But even these shows, I mean, these shows in general, these shows can be educational and they can be damaging. But I find that more than not, they are more damaging. You know, there's the lore of the paranormal investigators, but you know, what happens when you go into the house? You know, you go into the house and you use your equipment and you're happy to use all of these great things. But what happens? You leave the family hanging high and dry, because now you've gone and you've awoken something, or you've stirred something up, and now the family has to deal with the repercussions. And that's where the Legacy Foundation comes in. That's where the Warren Legacy Foundation comes in. Yeah. If I had $1, if I had $1 for every case we've had to clean up, I probably wouldn't be a millionaire, but close to it. And that's just the way it is.
If I've had $1 every time someone argues me that because Zach said.
Well, yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that.
Zach said it's a ghost.
Well, it's funny. My Facebook memory came up exactly 2 years ago today. I was at the museum with my wife. I was like, well, I almost said ex-wife. Well, no, my ex-wife. Priscilla, sorry, babe.
I'm texting her right now to tell her.
Oh, geez, I'm so tired.
Listen in at 56 minutes.
Another ex-wife. That's all I need. Oh my gosh, sorry, babe. But because we were having a conversation about our exes yesterday and whatever. But yeah, it was interesting. And so we went into the museum, and it was fun. It was a fun experience. The only thing that happened to me is that they gave me one of those little cards to pull, and I guess they have a small person. I guess that's the term now, hanging in the closet room, and he jumped out at him. He was like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, you kind of scared me." But everybody else was like, "Oh," you know, they were jumping. And it was amazing to see all of these tourists like, oh my gosh, they were just eating and absorbing these things. Whatever. It is what it is. And then I was like, hey, is Zach here? I'd like to talk to him. I said, I work with the Legacy Foundation. I go, can I go to the room where the Satan and stuff is happening? And he's like, he's not here right now. But a lot of people were like, I wasn't trying to ruin the experience, but I was like, all right, whatever, man. You know, it is what it is. The haunted dolls and all that. It was good to see because it was entertainment purposes.
Great.
Well, I will say one thing though. I mean, obviously we can't ignore the fact that there are many energies in that place, you know, whether it's you know, psychosomatics or just the energy of everything else that's there. I mean, it's still a good museum. I still think it's entertaining, but I still do think that you have to be use caution and still be respectful. There was a young girl from New Zealand who essentially didn't believe in these things. And well, we got to the Dybbuk box area. She was saying from the beginning of the tour outside, I want to mess with the Dybbuk box. I can't wait. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. We got to the Dybbuk box area, and sure enough, she decided she was going to touch the box, which was rude. It says don't touch. Whether or not you believe in this stuff, it's personal property. Don't touch it. So either way, so as soon as she touches the Dybbuk box, a few seconds later, she goes into the hallway. She has a seizure. She's vomiting. She's pale, and she has to be escorted off the property. Now, I don't know whether she was a paid actor or what, but you know, the only experience
knowing Zach.
Knowing Zach. I mean, you know, knowing Zach, whatever. Yeah. But and then you know, the other experience I had, I felt a couple of touches here and there. I'm like, all right, whatever. But my wife, Priscilla, she had earrings on, and one of the earrings unlatched, and it fell on the floor. And she goes, nope, she just took off the other one, and she left it on the floor. She's like, I am not bringing these back to the hotel with me. They could stay right here on the floor. She's like, I don't want a haunted plane ride.
Yeah, well, I mean, next time you go out there, the best time to see Zach is if you know he's not filming,
Yeah.
He's usually at the museum between about an hour or two before they close.
Mm.
Because when he's not filming, from what I understand, he's there investigating, playing around with the museum, fixing things. And he goes just before closing. And his mom is the one that runs.
Oh yeah, she is so sweet.
Yeah.
I met her. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Like, look, we can put all the gimmick stuff aside in the TV shows.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that Zach Bagans has actually helped bring the paranormal to the light. And we can't ignore that. Just like with Ghost Hunters, which originally was Joe Frankie's show, but he decided he was going to turn it down, Joe. But it could have been Joe Frankie and the War Legacy Foundation Ghost Hunters, but he decided not to because he was busy for whatever reason. But at Ghost Hunters and all these other shows, they've helped bring the paranormal to the limelight. Yeah. And so we have to give it credence, not so much a respect, but a credence, because of these shows. A lot of these things are now much more mainstream, and I like it. Discovery Plus might as well just call it Paranormal Plus.
Yep.
I mean, just might as well just call Discovery Plus Paranormal Plus.
Paranormal home makeovers.
Okay, Discovery Plus. If you're hearing this right now, copyright Paranormal Plus Network, royalties, please. But yeah, I mean, and so going to this event, it was a beautiful thing. Richard Leigh, Patty Negri. We had a panel discussion. Oh my gosh, I am hungover in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have a supernatural hangover, because it was just beautiful. I mean, just meeting everybody, seeing everybody. I made some resources. I made some networking. There's always opportunity for networking, and I've been approached now to certain talks in the way, and that's cool. I didn't expect any of these things. I've never been on TV shows. I've never done any of these things, and so for to be quite honest, I was a little a little overwhelmed at first, because you're with Patty Negri, Richard Leigh, and I'm like, who am I? Here I am doing God's work on the side, an underground paranormal ninja, combating evil and stuff like that, and these wonderful people have got their own shows, and I'm sharing a panel with them. But Patty Negri was one of the most sweetest persons ever. She gave me her phone number. Richard Leigh, Dennis Morningstar. We had a really good, interesting conversation panel about, the satanic worshiping, and religion. And obviously there's some differences in opinion on who and how we worship. But the central point that I got out of that is, we're all looking for something. We're all searching for something. Each path is individual, and we could get along, right? And Dennis Morningstar brought up this thing, which is a really beautiful thing. He was shunned as a person who practices as a satanic practitioner. He was shunned for going down with this team and giving the homeless people food. He was shunned for giving them clothing and shelter. Meanwhile, the people of my faith were in the corners handing out cards saying that I'm going to pray for you. Wow. That put things into perspective. Yep. So here he is getting shunned for doing what we're supposed to be doing, but all we're doing is like, I'll pray for you. Here's a card. So that put things into perspective as well. And it's like, not everything is bad. Not everything is good. I certainly could say that within my faith, there's a lot of fallacies, a lot of flaws. We're not perfect, but the commonality is, I want to serve people. I want to do good. And that's what I got out from like Richard Leigh, Patty Negri, Christina Bloom. It was, oh my gosh, it was just beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And that's the problem with, I guess you would say, religion all around. Because even here in Florida, I mean, you can't drive a block without running across a Catholic church or a Baptist church. Yeah. And I always kept what I believed to me. Yeah. Because I was actually asked to leave a restaurant because they saw my tattoo, and it's a triquetra. So it could
which is a Catholic sigil. It's a Catholic sigil.
It could easily be that. And even though I have different beliefs behind it, it could easily be that. But I was asked to leave, and I was told they don't serve people like me there. And
I'm so sorry you went through that.
Right. Because of that, I've always kept my beliefs to myself.
Was this recent?
No, this was like 8 years ago.
Oh, let's go. I'll go back to that place, and the Padre can take off the collar for a second.
um, and-
I can have a conversation knuckle to knuckle with these folks.
right. It's just amazing how close-minded people are, are here. And it took me moving to Vegas for 7 years to finally open up. Yeah. And start sharing, what I believed in. Because for the longest time, people would be like, hey, Heather, what church do you go to? It's like, oh, no, I'm a soul practitioner. I always said the beach is my church. And it was, but I didn't go into details.
Well, it's like even with me, right? Like I grew up, Christian my whole life. And, I was taught to hate the Catholic belief system. And here I am, an independent Catholic priest. Mm-hmm. And even then is a touchy subject because, we are so independent Catholic movement. It's an expression of our faith. Mm-hmm. We are recognized by Rome, by the Vatican, because we need to have apostolic succession, but we are all inclusive. We marry people who are gay, homosexuality. We don't judge you. We'll pray for you. We'll give you mass. We'll give you communion. We'll marry you. And so Rome, Vatican doesn't like that, so that's why I have to be careful in saying, I'm an independent Catholic priest. I follow Roman Catholicism, but I cannot say I'm an independent Roman Catholic blah 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 priest, because then there'll be a cease and desist order on me. And I actually learned that from Bishop Long, which is a good thing. So there's so many expressions of faith, and even within our own faiths, even within my faith, it's so many divisions, and it's. I know Rudy wanted to do a show with me. It's we're talking about an idea of the priest and the preacher, and talking about our different faiths, but and the idea, I love Rudy and I love the guys at the Apocalypse Project. But the more I sit and think about it, I go, it's a beautiful idea, and we can talk, but the more it's like, is it really something I want to do? Because I'm more into the sense of like, I don't really care what you believe in, I don't care what type of Christianity you practice, I'm not here to compare apples and oranges. I'm not here to compare notes. I'm here to live my life the way I know how to, and I'm here to just to be a person that shows love, empathy, and compassion to other people. And the problem is that we follow the Bible, and in the Bible, there's there's a lot of beautiful stories, but you have the corruption of an individual, whether a priest, preacher, a person of the cloth, and uses this biblical interpretation, and it causes what we call legalism. Legalism is the legalistic belief in following the Bible in a non-biblical way. And so I actually teach against spiritual abuse. I'm a counselor for spiritual abuse. I do angelic healing because I've been approached by so many people within the Christian Catholic expression that have been abused, not so much sexually, but just the isms of it. Mm-hmm. The fact that there are a lot of people out there who have these supernatural abilities, and they're like, well, I can't say anything because my church is going to kick me out. My priest, I help out a non-denominational church on the weekends. I do interpretation. And they're always following my stuff. And the pastor wants me to teach the rest of the church about demonic possession and mental illness. I can do that. The problem is you guys don't believe in demonic possession. So what's the point? Do I need to show you what a real exorcism looks like for you to believe? Mm-hmm. So
yeah. And that's like I had Jeff on last week because Nicole messed up the time zones. And so Jeff stepped in and took over for her. And he was talking about how, he's like, I'm always saying I want to experience something and I want to, and Joe's always telling him, no, don't do it. And it's kind of like that situation. Do we have to actually show you? Yeah. It's like, let me go find a demon to possess one of you guys.
Yeah, let me go find a demon. Let me show you extensive case study. Yeah. Because the Protestant belief system is that, well, if you're a Christian, you can't be taken over by a demon. Well, yeah, that's true. The expression of that is, the idea is that if there's the Holy Spirit or Christ that lives within you, none of this stuff could happen. But we're still human beings. Right. People are taking out the human element. Mm-hmm. Just like I love it when people say, well, you know what? I have faith in God and he's going to cure this cancer. I'm not going to take my treatments because God is good. He's going to cure me. Yeah, he's going to cure you when you die because you're not going to be in pain anymore. It's like, what do you mean, Father? What do you mean, Padre? Well, don't you think that your expression of your faith, if you have faith that God is going to heal you, don't you also believe that there's these beautiful people who practice medicine who are called doctors there to help you out? Mm-hmm. It's like this one story. There was a guy who cried wolf, right? For all intents and purposes. So there's a guy, his house was going underwater. He's like, God, save me. I need you. I have faith in you. Cool. All right. Helicopter comes by. Hey, yeah, your house is going under. No, I got faith in God. Don't worry about it. All right, cool. A boat comes by, right? Hey, your house is going under, right? No, I'm waiting for God to save me. Cool. Then a few hours later, another boat comes by again, and he says, hey, I'm going to take you. Let's help you out. No, I'm waiting for God. I got faith in God. Boom. Guy dies, and he goes to heaven. He goes, God, where were you? I had faith. And he goes, bro, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. That's how faith works. That's how faith works. People have this idea of a supernatural interference of faith. Like, oh my gosh, although it is rare. I do believe in miracles. I do believe in that. But in today's society, even if a miracle were to happen, people wouldn't believe it because we are so disconnected with our spiritual self. We are so disconnected from what it is to live either holy or spiritually or not to be connected as you would say with your ancestors and it's a shame. There's a lot of beautiful beliefs in this world, and the spiritualism, there's a lot of spiritualism, there's a lot of good supernatural influences, and people don't believe in these things, and so I think they miss out on that. So that's my interpretation of faith.
Yeah. No, and I completely, I understand. I mean, I understand it to a point where people think that way, because even with Hurricane Ian, we had several people who were told to evacuate.
Yeah.
And they stayed behind.
Yeah.
And it's just after seeing, I mean, granted, it turned a little bit, so we didn't get hit as hard, but we still got hit hard.
Yeah.
People, I mean, just looking at the, photos of, not Fort Myers. Yeah. Fort Myers area down by, just flattened. And there's nothing there anymore.
It's sad, and it's funny because you mentioned that. Hey, Ian, okay.
Perfect timing.
Ian, perfect timing. But no, we were talking about that at the conference, with the natural events and the disasters, and there was some emotional talk at the sense, and it's like, well, if you're God, this and that, I go, look, that's just the way it is. It's natural occurrences. If there was this, well, let me ask you this, as a parent, right? Are you going to as a parent, are you going to want to be involved in your everyday sons to sons, everything, controlling your son, what to do, what to say, not to live, not to breathe? As a parent,
yes.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, idealistically,
yeah, that would be great, but
But what ends up happening if you're always intervening? If you never let people make mistakes, if you never let people experience these different things, and that's where I tell people that's where the expression of my faith comes in. Yeah, idealistically, the guy in the sky can be like, you know what, hey, cool, whatever. But there's so much more beauty around the world. You're going to let a natural disaster, change your mind of whether or not. But that's just the way it is. If we had somebody intervening all the time, then we'd be in a perfect utopia. And there wouldn't be an expression of 3,000 faiths. There wouldn't be an expression of different belief systems and spirituality. So, no.
Yeah, when there's natural disasters like that, that's when they look at people like me and be like, what'd you do? What'd you tell Mother Nature to do? What'd you do to piss her off?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, sometimes it gets a little windy and I'm like, I command you to stop, and it stops. I go, all right, yeah, I got the gift, but I know it's not me. It's like I remember when I was young, I used to practice magic with my friends, right? It was the craft age, 1997, 1996. We used to go down to waterfalls and, before, because even when I was in church, I would practice magic. I would like to understand more about different belief systems. And that's where, that's why I became a Doctorate of Divinity, because I loved understanding different religions. And so I remember one time, I'd read a ritual and, it would be windy and I'm like, I command you to stop. And it would stop. I go, I got it. You know what I mean? But I knew it wasn't me. It's a 12-year-old prepubescent kid, thinking you got some power. But, it's the idea, and I think that's where it comes in, where, we're all searching for something, the ability to make a change, the ability to say something and, helping somebody. I wish that there were times when I can just go up to a person and say, hey, you're healed of all your ailments, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Let's see. Life is a journey. It's true.
That's what I was just about to read.
No, life is a journey. I mean, and so what do we take with all this? For me, this is just what I believe. This is what I feel. This is how I interpret things. And I'm hoping that one day, I can make an impact in somebody's lives. Yeah, I'm an archbishop and I have all these different titles, but it doesn't define who I am. I'm a person. I struggle every day. I have a traumatic brain injury. I'm a veteran. There are times when I wake up and I have a hard time articulating what I want to say. I stutter. I don't let my disabilities disable me. And that's who I am.
Right. And we're lucky enough to actually live in a country where we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
follow our own path.
Yeah, in the Middle East, you can't. Like in the Middle East, you talk about someone, they'll stone you to death. Which is why people like, all these political movements and all that, whatever, that's fine. That's whatever. That's what you want to do, that's fine. But you're lucky. You're lucky because I've seen otherwise. When I was deployed overseas, the police, they'll just bash in your window. They'll pull you out. They'll beat the crap out of you. Then they'll ask you, oh, what's your name? You're not a terrorist. Oh, okay. Carry on. I've seen other people where you steal stuff and they cut your hand for stealing, or you get stoned to death because you were caught cheating on your husband or vice versa. We live in a great country. So no matter what your political belief system is, we live in a great country.
Yeah. Real quick, just a shout out to everybody who's watching. Sorry, we've been talking too much. I haven't been able to say hi as you guys come in, but hi, Val. Hi, Joe. Hi, Francis. Hi, Ian. And then Bill just joined us. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you have any questions for myself or Father Kenneth, please put them in the comments.
Yeah. I'm going to adjust my shirt real quick. Give me 1 minute.
No problem.
All right.
Okay.
Wardrobe adjustment. So, I love the fact that, with the Exploring the Paranormal. So, like, for me, I've got my own show with Dalton. It's called Enter the Dark, and we're having a show tonight. And I think tonight normally we try to have guests, but tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about the event and good communication and ethics. Because one thing, I'll be praying for you, Joe.
No, he can't pray enough for you. I'm sorry.
Can't pray enough for you. Not enough Hail Marys. Oh, geez. And that text Joe, Joe, I love this man. We broke bread, and he's just a wonderful individual. He's like a big brother to me. But I'm going to be talking tonight on my show about good communication and ethics, because that's what I experienced at this event. I experienced good communication and I experienced good ethics. And we don't always have to agree on things, but it was beautiful. And then, what else was there? I'm just vibing off of this past weekend because it was a remarkable experience, and I can't wait to do more. Hopefully maybe next year get to go down to Florida with Bill and what's his name? Robbie the doll. What's his name?
Robert the doll. Yeah.
Robert the doll. Check him. Oh, I think Robert the doll may be more possessed than Annabelle. Here's my take on Annabelle. I think that whatever was with Annabelle already ran its course. I think everything is just an egregore. I think it's self-manifestation, the Lord behind it. I think whatever was with Annabelle during the time is already gone. I think maybe it dissipated or it's gone,
Right. Well, Robert the doll, his room, the minute you cross that threshold, you can feel an energy change.
Yeah.
And if I know people who have claimed to have bad luck because they didn't follow the 4 rules. Introduce yourself, say hello, ask permission to take a photo, be respectful, so 5 rules, and then say goodbye.
Yeah.
If you don't, and they have these rules posted before you walk in the room. They're like, do not enter this room unless you're willing to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, just like
the energy is just dramatically different from one room to another with him.
Hopefully one day we get to explore it. We went to Fort Ticonderoga, beautiful historic place in upstate New York. Just the ground, just the energy there was amazing. We walked the hallowed grounds of George Washington and other famous presidents. I forgot how beautiful it was. We also got the opportunity to speak with the tattoo artist at the convention, and she had a couple of alleged haunted dolls. Mama Tab's tattoo shop in Plattsburgh, New York. She was very sweet, and she bought a church, which is a beautiful church. It's very accepting, but it was cool because she was like, "Hey, I've got this doll," and we saw the doll, and I say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm with respect," and I took a picture of the doll, and it's a creepy, ugly looking doll. It's like I wouldn't want it in my room. It's a thing of nightmares, but I showed respect for it, and I'm fine. Nothing happened. So I think it's all about grounding. I know we're probably going off topic, but you and I, we have the same mindset. it's easy for us to fluidly transition into any topic and just come back to where the origin point is.
Exactly. And like I said at the beginning of the show before you joined in, is I really didn't have a topic today because you and I always get off topic.
Yeah, so. That's how it is. Great minds think alike, see? Great minds always think alike. What else? I mean, what else is there? I mean, misconceptions. Let's talk about misconceptions. I think misconceptions about everything being demonic. Yeah, I'm an exorcist, but exorcism is highly rare. I think everyone knows that. Hollywood has portrayed exorcism as the mainstream thing in the paranormal.
They happen every Friday.
Every Friday.
Every Friday at 6.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know. Valentine. He was at the shop with us. Are you confirming that the doll was a real person? Maybe you can confirm in the chats because Val, he knows Mama Tabs, and but yeah, the doll itself was nice, and the demonic. It doesn't always happen. Yeah. I will say though, I will say one thing though. At the event, there was an individual who came up to us who didn't know we were going to be there, and it was Joe, Frankie, and I, and another individual, and there was a supernatural element to this individual, and this is why we don't stop working. We always work, even when we're working. And so the individual wanted us to bless him and pray for him. I gave him a cross, and as soon as I touched the cross, he had an adverse reaction. His hands got really hot, and you could see an effect from the cross. I shook his hand. He had an aversion to my collar, and then we went to go pray for him. And I didn't know that Joe Frankie had a rosary in his hand. And so when we went to go pray for him and bless him, the rosary was in his hand, and I didn't know that, but he had a severe adverse supernatural reaction to it. We prayed for this individual. We put holy water on him. Scars were emanating from his face. The holy water was burning him. But guess what, though? I asked him, what trauma have you gone through? He goes, well, I went through a trauma as a kid. So we have an untreated, undiagnosed mental illness and a trauma that led to the possibility of some supernatural attachment. And whether or not you believe in demons or anything, you don't have to label them that. But there are supernatural forces out there that can be negative in nature and that can afflict you. And this young man was afflicted by something. He was going through a lot of pain. He was going through a lot of hurt. But he wanted us to pray for him, and we did. And at the end of the day, he was crying. I was happy. He went away knowing that, hey, this is a process. Whatever we did for you now is a process. It's up to you to continue the journey. And that's something that we always tell our clients. We can only give you the tools that you need to succeed. However, if you don't continue with, our prescription or our prescribed method of approach, then it's going to get worse. Yeah. And so the beautiful thing is that we convey to this gentleman and his friend, whatever your belief system is, just stop it, because he was tampering with things that he didn't know, and I often find that I don't have a problem with the occult. I don't have a problem with the expression of how you practice, but I think you and I can agree. As teens, they go through a lot of traumatic events, and then you reach to the occult and you want that instant gratification. So you start messing with these supernatural forces that you know nothing about, although they may not be benign, but there's always some type of catch to it. And so I do believe that while him messing with the occult, he potentially unlocked something that he wasn't ready for. And maybe given a point in time, if he wanted to be an occultist and study this later on down the road, once his mental illnesses were taken care of, maybe no doubt that he could probably be more prepared to handle these things, but he wasn't. So.
Yeah. And that's where, I don't really dabble in the occult, but I do dabble in some things that people view as occultish.
Yeah.
But I personally believe if anyone wants to, use a Ouija board or a pendulum board or reach out and try some alternative methods, I believe I call it the term of self-possession.
Yeah.
And it's where you firmly, if you believe 100% in yourself and your abilities, then you're more, grounded, more protected to dabble with these things.
No, and that's
exactly, confident.
That's exactly how I feel. I mean, confidence is everything, right? That's what they say. Confidence is everything. There is a confidence, but at the same time, with the confidence, there's that borderline arrogance that I see a lot of people in this field have.
Yeah.
And that arrogance ultimately leads to their demise, because you're confident, that you know how to deal with these things. But you forgot the most important thing was to ground yourself, protect yourself, and above all, I think to me it's about being humble. You know, when you're tampering with these things, be cognizant of the fact that these are elements that are slightly more powerful than you are. And so if you just completely just say, you know what, whatever, I'm better than you, whatever, it's a recipe for disaster. And I'm struggling for the words today because I'm not even on my second cup of coffee. It's like I have the nice big words that I always use, but today, you know, as doctors, we got our bad days. It's like, oh man.
I don't function without several cups of coffee in the morning. Yeah,
and you're right, Ian. If you respect the Ouija board, it gives you back. And that's how I feel. You know, I feel it's the same to be true with spirit communication, EVP. It's all about respect. It's all about being grounded, and you know, because you can still get an attachment. And with the spirits, you know, it's not something that happens right away. I mean, they're not confined to our time and space continuum. So, you know, yeah,
and also, I mean, knowing how to handle it if it happens. Because that's the problem with these, you know, I don't really want to, you know, say it's a problem per se, but it's an issue if you use the Ouija board and you're like, oh, nothing really happened. And then you just, you know, put it away and something did happen. And all of a sudden they're starting to experience this activity, their fear then when that activity starts. So, I mean, knowing how to handle it if something happens is also, you know, necessary.
Well, just like the painting piece that I have for the foundation, because my TBI is so bad. Could you please let the audience know, remind me exactly what was going on? Because up until this day, nothing has happened to me. Nothing has happened in my house.
Yeah, the woman reached out to me saying that they received the painting from a client who didn't want to have it anymore, and it was possessed, you know, is all they said. And then they carried, they said that when they had it, everybody felt sick around it. Nobody could handle it. And they had it in their storage room or in their storage unit. And just every time they would go into the storage unit, strange things happened.
Well, I would, you know, and when I received the painting, you know, it's beautiful. It's properly protected. You know, I said a prayer for it. I said a blessing over it, surrounded my office with white salt. I mean, and so knock on wood, you know, thank goodness nothing has happened. So now that leads me to believe, are we dealing with self-manifestation, or are we dealing with the fact that maybe that team had something other that was attached to it, and they were thinking that maybe it was this painting? I don't know. It's a beautiful painting. It's almost a 200-year-old painting of Jesus.
Right.
And so to think that it's possessed, I refuse to believe that.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's a beautiful, it encompasses good. You know, the idea of Jesus is an embodiment of being good, pure, holy, being a light to others, feeding the hungry. You know, so when I received it, I was like, wow, it's a beautiful picture. And I hope one day we can display it, you know, in our own headquarters, when we have our own headquarters one day.
Yeah, I know when she sent me photos of it, I usually can pick up on some stuff, but I got nothing off of that.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So now here's the other question. Are we now dealing with a team that wasn't ready enough? Or was it one of these things where they're just going to go in, they jumped at the call of an investigation to use their equipment? You know, there's a lot of these factors that we have to measure in, and I don't know how much time we have on the show.
I have another half hour, and you can stay for that, but in 2 minutes, we need to take a commercial break.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
But what, you know, going back to it, I mean, that's, I think, one thing that maybe we should talk about on the next segment, if you want, is, you know, the amateur teams and what to do, what not to do, and we'll go from there.
Right. And actually, I'm sure that we can get that commercial break starting early. I'm sure Todd can get it running. So guys, stay tuned. I will be back in a few moments, and Father Kenneth Torres will be sticking around as well. So see you guys in a few moments.
Certified psychic medium Stephanie Lynn creates an authentic connection between the living and the spirit world. Stephanie knows she is here to help heal, educate, and provide validation that there is more after death, and allows herself to be a conduit and work as a team with spirit to pass on messages from their world to ours. Stephanie Lynn also works as a spiritual life coach to help you achieve, create, and manifest your best self and life. Looking for help communicating with an animal? Searching for a past life regression therapist? Or dealing with a paranormal experience? Stephanie Lynn is here to help. For a list of full services, visit her on Facebook under Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive. That's Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you, Father Kenneth, for sticking around for another half hour. I know it's early by you, and you're probably wanting to go back to bed.
No, I'm actually up for the day. I've got a honey to-do list, believe it or not. So, but no, I mean, I'm up. I normally wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I help my wife get ready for work, like I pack her lunch, I'll on her clothes, I'll take the dogs out, feed the dogs, walk them. But you know, it's life, everyday life.
Yeah, I need a more set schedule. I just wake up when I wake up, except for days like today when I have something to do in the morning.
I just feel so refreshed. I was excited. I was getting nervous coming on these shows. Even though I have my own show, it's always these jitters. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's funny. Christina Bloom, I was like, oh, do you know Heather? She goes, yeah. I said, yeah, she just came on her network. So you want to give a shout out to Christina Bloom. She was so sweet. It's nice. I do have the sniffles. So,
and it's one of those things where it's like, I still feel, I don't want to say embarrassed, but whenever someone's like, oh yeah, we know who you are, or, you know, like my agent's like, he goes, yeah, everybody I talk to loves you. And it's like, okay. It's like,
you know, it's funny because I try to always be humble, right? And then so at the event, you know, there were a lot of people who didn't know about the Warrens, but there were many people that know about the foundation. And I was surprised that there were a lot of people that like, I came to see you, Father Ken. I go, what? Me? What? I go, why? I was like, so I gave a very academia presentation on demonic possession, and so people loved it, you know. And it was surprising that people were like, they know who you are. It's like, oh, we watching the Warren Files and all that stuff. I go, okay, but yeah, everybody. But you know, most of everybody there, 90% of the people were there to see Joe Frankie. You know, it was great. I mean, it was great. You know, the fact that we had Joe Frankie with us, who worked 37 years with the Warrens, can attest to many of their cases, and it was beautiful. But yeah, just like, I was like, you know who I am? Like, kidding? Do you know me? Like, you know how nervous I get? I was like, you know how like nervous I get? Do you know how much I stutter? Do you know sometimes I'm emotional and I'm unorthodox and I tell you how it is? And you know, that's why a lot of other clergy don't like me, and I don't care, because a lot of these other clergy that are on there on Facebook trying to be famous, or they're demonic, whatever, possessions or exorcist, none of them really have experienced that stuff, you know. And then they go online and they buy their little degree. I had this one priest come up to me. He goes, well, I have multiple PhDs. Like, oh, congratulations, sir. I go, what school did you go to? I said, I went to Baylor College University. I have a degree in counterterrorism. I went through this seminary school that's reputable, and I actually have a religious degree. And he goes, oh, well, they're honorary. Oh, congratulations. And what your question is, I'm checking the validity of your degree. Oh, yeah, here it's in my school shows up in the DOD, Department of Defense, nationally recognized schools. So what's your question? Oh, no, never mind. You know, I got you confused with someone else. Okay, whatever. I hate that. There's always that jealousy. And that's why I just try to be careful on how I do things and how I say things. I don't want to give myself the stigma of everyone else. You have all these people on social media that are portraying themselves, and it kills me. I see it all the time. They come up, they got a black and white photo with the hat and the cross, exorcist, you know, of the occults and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, and they try to throw in all these titles and they name drop. I studied this, I did this, I did that, I did that. Good for you. Good for you. You've studied all that. That just means that you know nothing. All that just tells me is that you studied much of nothing. You know, have you actually been in the trenches? You know, have you actually known what it's like to break bread with individuals? Do you go out to the street? Do you feed the homeless? Do you, you know, run a food kitchen? You know, because I do these. That's what I love to do. Do you work with combat veterans? Do you go out there? Do you surf with them? Are you out there advocating for them? Are you there advocating for other people who have been abused by the church? Are you connecting them with mental resources? Are you getting them free counseling lessons? I have a good connection with Dr. Cabrera, and we're good friends, and she's offered to help us out with our cases, and she'll give our clients 1 hour of in the past she's offered to give our clients an hour of free consultation. Are you out there doing that? No. Well, I don't care. I don't care who you are. That's just how it is. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, thank you, Todd, for sharing that for us. There's Father Kenneth's website down below. Yeah. And this was one thing, and it kind of reminds me of what I wanted to bring up earlier. I completely forgot, is all these paranormal teams want to try to be the next TV show. Yeah. And I tell people, because everybody asks me, I've been in the paranormal field for more than 30 years, but just recently, as recent as the last 4 years, I started being more active in the public's eye. And everybody keeps asking me, well, how'd you do it? And I was like, I just was doing me, and they came to me. Yeah. Like the TV show that we filmed a pilot for, they came to us and wanted us to do it. The documentary came to us and wanted us to do it. And it just, it's don't go out there looking to get on these TV shows. Like I was talking about earlier, is do what works for you. And if you have the personality, the experience that these TV shows are looking for, trust me, they're watching.
Yeah, and that's true. Like for me, if it ever happens, it happens, and that's fine. If it never happens, I'm okay with that. I have a face for radio. That's all I'll say. You know what I mean? I have a face for radio. Even then, it's a personal process, because I do feel like even if something like that were to happen to me, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready to step back from helping clients. If it was a pilot, if it was something that says, hey, you're helping real clients, real situation, that's fine. It would have to be on my terms. It would have to be, nothing's unedited, nothing's unfiltered. I want to show the real thing. I want to convey to the public that there are families out there who are really afraid of what's going on and need help understanding the paranormal. Not just, okay, cool, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off my shirt and start yelling at the demon, which is, I can attest to as a Catholic priest that works really well, oh my gosh, it kills me. You have all these guys that go out with all of these religious objects and all that stuff, and that stuff means nothing. You can put on a show, you can have all of these different things on you. That means nothing. That means nothing. For me, it's, I believe that people like us who are chosen for this. I believe that people like us who are chosen like us, there's a supernatural power, supernatural push, a supernatural power. But I do think that we're backed up by it's called supernatural authority, spiritual authority. In my case, it's called spiritual authority. I do believe that I don't have to be dressed up as a priest. I don't have to, I don't have to be in my uniform. I believe through my faith system that I can be anywhere in the world and be who I am. And through the grace that I've been given by my Creator, that I can pray for a person, that I can help a person, and that I can help them with this problem through the supernatural inversion, the supernatural, help of God to get rid of these attachments. I don't need to be out there puffing my chest and wearing all these holy rosaries, and I'm going to get a tattoo of St. Michael the Archangel and all that stuff, and I'm going to show a picture of me on Facebook praying like this. Oh, I don't do that stuff, and so for me, if that were to happen, it just has to be on my terms.
Yeah, and it's like when I cleanse a house, I come in with just a small bottle of cascarilla.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's it? It's like, what do you expect?
Well, the funny thing is, what's one thing that we always tell our clients above all, like, face your fears, right? Don't be afraid, right? And I tell clients, there's something as simple, and I'm going to give you the secret. And they're like, what's the secret? Don't be afraid. Show no fear. They're like, what? They're like mind blown. I go, yes. Show no fear. Don't be afraid. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. Simple as that. It's you believing in what you believe in. It's you standing up, and it's you not showing any fears, and it's you facing the problem head on. Because we can give you all of these tools, but if you're afraid, it's not going to help. I mean, it's like people use this as a Tylenol. They've got a headache. They call the foundation up. Boom, that's it. It goes away for a few seconds, but guess what? They have, that's how I feel. That's
6 to 8 hours. No.
6 to 8 hours later, and we've got some cases, we've got some, you've seen the cases, we report, you see our reports. We've got cases with people who are dealing with a lot of stuff that's bad, but at the same time, they just don't want to help themselves. And as much as we try to convey the idea that self-help is also important, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and they get upset with us. Well, I reached out to you. Okay, yes. And we're telling you everything that needs to be done. Well, I reached out to this other team, and this is what this other team says. Good. If that's what the other team said, are you following their advice? No. Why not? Well, because I didn't think it worked. So now you're reaching out to us, and now you're telling us it doesn't work. So what's going to happen? You're going to probably move on to the next team, so on and so forth, right? And eventually that client's going to get so upset with everybody because they think that it's the teams, but they don't realize that it's them. It is them. Whether it's psychosis, psychosomatics, an undiagnosed, untreated mental illness, who knows?
Yeah. Or they're welcoming it.
They're welcoming it.
Yeah.
Look, folks, if you're gonna just mess with the occult, if you're gonna dabble with these things, just be smart about it. I highly advise it. But I tell you what, though, no pun intended. It's not even a pun. It's more work for us. That's true. The more you mess with these things, we're probably going to end up getting calls from you. And it's job security.
Yeah.
But as Joe Frankie had mentioned, no call. You're not getting a phone call, sitting at our desks, and not having a phone call from anything is always a good feeling. It's like, okay, cool. It seems like what we're doing with the client is helping out. And it's always amazing to see clients say, hey, Padre, hey, Chris, hey, Heather, everything you told us, we did, and it's worked. We haven't had any issues. See how simple that was?
Yep.
Positive affirmation. Start off with a positive affirmation. Wake up every day, smile, play good music, open up your windows, burn some Palo Santo, burn some sage, go out to the park and feed the ducks, walk outside barefoot with your feet in the grass. I have dogs, so I like to play tug of war with them. I like to give them belly rubs. I lay on the floor and I let them attack me, and they all wrestle and pull my ears, and they like to nibble on my ears. For me, that's part of the work. That's what you need to do, to avoid these things, because I feel it. Every day I wake up, I feel the supernatural presence around me, in the sense of I've got these cases that we're working on, and these things can affect you. I don't know about you, but I do believe that if you're working on a case that's darker in nature, but because we're affiliated and we're connected, I believe it can affect me as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. It's interesting because we were doing an investigation in Vegas, and we had negative activity happening in the basement, and it was weird. The investigator, I think there were 2 floors above us, knew something was wrong. He just, because I was in an area, it was a former mob hangout, and I was doubled over in pain because it felt like someone punched me in the gut, which would make sense because of the way the mob acted.
Yeah.
And everybody, came running to me, and they were like, helping me. And all of a sudden the other investigator comes running down the stairs, and he's like, what's going on? And he just knew 2 floors away, something was wrong.
Well, it's interesting because we had a similar event that happened at the Beacon Theater. We did a charitable event a few weeks ago with the foundation and our promotion company, Flumeri Promotions, RTL Paranormal. And so the Beacon Theater was a lovely experience. It was a great opportunity for education. It was a charitable event. So my team, we were on the 2nd floor. And on the 2nd floor, that's it. There's a 3rd floor, which is the roof. We heard people walking and knocking upstairs on the 3rd floor. And so one of the tour guides, we peek our head over to the roof area. There was an access area. There was nothing. But the team below us, they said, hey, what was going on upstairs? We heard walking and a whole bunch of noise. We're like, no, we were all sitting down on our chairs. If you looked at the photos and the evidence, we were all sitting down on the chair, but the team downstairs heard exactly what we were hearing. It's amazing. It's being in a situation that's with like-minded individuals. We helped a couple of spirits cross over. Joe Frankie, did a good job. And I'm always going to revert to Joe because, he's like a big Papa Bear. But his methodology on doing things was amazing. Just to see just to see experience in action. And I hope one day that I can be I'll never be half the man he is because height wise, but I hope one day I can be as experienced as he is.
And it's amazing too, because even with people from other teams that I've been on, or even members of the foundation, if I'm having a rough day, I'll just randomly get 3 or 4 messages from someone saying, "Hey, Heather, was thinking of you and just want to, make sure everything's okay."
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It was like,
synchronicity.
like they know.
It's synchronicity. It's a universe in action. There's this, like Joe had mentioned, this is a vocation. This is a vocation. And granted, you can go out and you can have fun and do some investigating with your tools. And I think for me personally, if you want to fine tune your skills with the equipment, I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I'm having a hard time talking now. I got the sharp pain in my chest. Sorry. So I got a sharp pain in my chest real quick, but I do think
it's the topic we're talking about.
I do think that as a good investigator, that it's okay to go out and use equipment and fine tune it, as long as you do it respectfully. But if you're using your equipment as a sole basis of an investigation and you're ruling out, you're not communicating with the clients properly, I think that's wrong. I think for me, a good investigator has a good understanding of everything, the equipment, crowd manipulation, so to speak, being able to talk to people, being able to engage your client. And I think that's one thing I'm good at. I can take a situation, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity because of my background with the military and counterintelligence. I'm able to take a situation and diffuse it and talk to a person and make them smile. I like to make my clients laugh and smile, even at the most inappropriate times, because it works. It lightens up the environment, and for me, that's important. If you're not engaging with your clients and you're just there, okay, how are you doing? My name is Kenneth Torres, paranormal investigator. You got all right, cool. Here's my proton pack. Here's everything else. Here's my business card. Cool. Oh my gosh, I felt something in your house. Cool. Yeah, you've got something here. Our equipment says that you've got something here. All right. You have a good day. Bye.
Yep.
Client's like, whoa, okay. Is that how everyone is? No, folks, that's not how every team is. That's how every team is.
Yeah. No, that's what they think it is. And I just, in case you guys can hear, I'm sorry for all the background noise, but my son came downstairs, fell asleep on the couch, and he's snoring like crazy. And now my dog is at my feet snoring like crazy. So I don't know if that's coming through.
I love it. Well, I'm in my office and I have to blur my background because my dog's
You've had a little white ghost walking around back there.
Yeah, that's my little dog. That's my little guy. His name is Angel. He always does that. He likes to come up during my interviews and sometimes he'll pull my pant. Like he's like, "Dad, I want to be on camera." So I'll pick him up and he'll look at the camera and he's not camera shy.
No, neither is my dog, but she's sound asleep right now.
No, it's funny. We taught him how to do selfie. We do selfie, and he'll look at the camera. I was like, "Oh, you flirt."
But yeah, I was actually on an interview one time, and the person said to me, "They're like, do you have a demon in the background?" And I'm like, "No, my son just took a nap on the couch and fell asleep."
The growling, I love it. Is there a demon in the background? Oh my gosh. Yeah, this field, I mean, in itself, it could just be. I mean, it's filled with rewards. It's very rewarding. But even within the foundation, the work that we do, there's so much stuff that happens that a lot of people don't see. Even with the administrative side and the leadership side, there's always something going on, and it's a process, fine tuning. It's an organization, but we never lose track of what the most important thing is, which is helping our clients. It's like we tell people, let us worry about the other stuff. You just worry about helping out the clients, and that's why I love the foundation. It's because we've had it. You and I. We've had disagreements in the past where we were like, hey, maybe this doesn't work, but it's okay. You're still my sister. I love you to death. Honestly, without the collar, I'd punch somebody in the face for you. That's how much I love you and I care about everyone in the foundation.
We're here for each other regardless.
Regardless, it's okay. It's okay to have disagreements. And if you're finding yourself as a leader of a team and you're not having healthy discussions and you're not having healthy disagreements, then what's the point? I find that if you always agree with the same thing, it's mundane. That's how I feel. I mean, granted, there'll be some points. We had we're dealing with the interview here at the client here in Sacramento. It was 4 or 5 of us directors, and we all gave different ideas. And most of us didn't agree with the ideas or agreed that, maybe we shouldn't proceed with this. And so we spoke to Chris and we spoke to Joe. We're like, hey, you know what? Boss man has spoken. Our ideas, yeah, they're all good in nature, but let's go ahead and stand by and let's wait to make this move. But we all had a healthy disagreement. We all gave our reasons why. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to have these types of talks with your team. What's your approach? What's your methodology? How are you going to do things? How are you going to set up? So let me ask you this, and this is my personal opinion. I love psychics, and I believe that psychics are important, but I personally don't necessarily agree that psychics have to be involved in every case. And it's not because I don't care about them, or it's not to discredit them, but I personally don't believe that a psychic should be involved in every case.
Yeah, I've never used a psychic on a case outside of since I joined the foundation. They've chimed in beforehand with some information, and it's not that I didn't want to use them, we just didn't have one on our team. And I personally feel that we did have one case. I ended up not going on it, so I haven't worked with them, but we did have a psychic come with us, and I told the team, and they actually followed what I suggested, is don't even tell them the address on where to go, because you never know. They can research the address before they show up. And you go pick them up and take them to the location. And when it comes to using them, they're more or less going back to the equipment. The equipment is a way of documenting our personal experiences. So we had X, Y, and Z happen at one time, and the equipment backs up that something happened. Same thing with the psychics. They have an experience, but that means nothing unless either someone else experiences it, or they record something or capture something.
We had a case here in town about a month ago. It was just residual energy, transient energy flowing through the house, and in the area that we went to was a pretty rough area filled with gangs, violence, and prostitution and drugs. And so we prayed for this family, and I had 2 psychics on my team go out, and I was like, hey, don't communicate with one another. Okay. So I got the first impression from the first psychic. Okay, cool. I brought my psychic out, brought the second psychic out. Those psychics both picked up in the same area, same location. But what they didn't know is that I had an EMF detector in that corner, right? I had it covered up with a box. And so as they were picking up on that area, the EMF detector was going off, and we got some sounds, but they confirmed through the equipment as well that there was something there. And then as soon as we were done, I said, all right, spit it out at the same time. What corner? And they're like, back right corner. They both said at the same time. It was an amazing experience. But we also had the equipment to help validate some of that information. But at the same time, too, one of my psychics got really sick. And that's always my thing. That's always my thing with working with the psychic. I trust my psychics in a sense. But as a team leader, as an investigator, as a clergyman, I'm going to do my very best to protect you on the team. The issue that I'm still working with is that there are psychics that don't have the same belief system that I do. And that's okay. That's not an issue. But there's situations where the case in itself can actually be a demonic infestation. But most psychics I know I've worked with don't believe in demonic infestation. But the evidence is clear, cut, and dry that the anomalous activity is due to demonic infestation, blah, blah, blah. We've already have validated it. And then the psychic goes in and says, oh, there's nothing there. I don't feel anything. Now, this is just a question. Is it because the psychic doesn't identify with that spiritual entity that it's going to be hiding itself? And I think it happens. I think that psychic can be attacked severely because they don't believe within the same. That's fine. But I do think that because of the belief system, they don't identify with that. I do think that demonic energy can hide itself from the psychic. I don't know. That's just a theory I have in working practice. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's again, it goes with beliefs. If you don't believe in something, like for me, I believe that I don't really want to use, because I don't use the word demonic attachments or demonic possession. It's more of just a negative energy, or something negative happening. So it's really not, but it's one of those things that's all about beliefs. And I think it's more or less that the psychics close themselves off to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a good point. They
don't believe in it, so they're closed off to it. They don't open up to the possibility.
Oh, you know what? That's actually something I may have to bring up because I think that's highly important. I mean, just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean Well, you don't have to put it a title, so to speak. And I
Right.
think that's where the issue comes in. That's where the issue therein lies.
Mhm.
Is that okay? Well, I call it a demonic entity, right? But you don't believe in it, so why not reclassify it as a negative energy?
Right.
Maybe that'll be
Yeah,
better
because I
than
believe it
acting.
happens,
Yeah,
but it's, because people always ask me, well, I'm not Catholic, or I don't believe in God. I can't be possessed by a demon. It's like, well, yeah,
yeah,
you can.
yeah, you can.
Even my pagan past, we have exorcism rituals.
Yeah.
So why would we have exorcism rituals that have been hundreds and thousands of hundreds,
Well, it's just
thousands,
interesting. Well,
however
just
old
like
it is.
it's funny that you mentioned that because I was speaking to Dennis Morningstar.
Mhm.
Dennis Morningstar is a well articulated individual
Mhm.
who came of the faith, who is now a Satanist. And we were talking about misconceptions, a lot of misconceptions about me being a priest. And, there's a couple of other people who are like, they didn't want to approach me because they thought, oh, I'm going to judge them. I go, no, let's talk. Let's have a conversation.
Mhm.
And I go, hey, there's a lot of misconceptions. It's like, so is it true that you guys are all worshiping demons and like them to possess you? He goes, hell no. Why would I want a demon to possess me?
Yeah.
I go, if anything, their thought process is that they work alongside with them, and they have the authority to command them and control them.
Yeah.
But no, it is never our intent for a person. So I go, so what would you do if I invited you as a priest to observe an exorcism? What would your ritual be? Would you then be behind my back, egging on
Come
this
with
demon?
me.
Yeah, egging on this demon and take my body. He goes, no. He goes, are you crazy? He goes, these are supernatural forces that I know nothing about, that I want nothing to do about. It's neutrality. If anything, I want them expelled. We'll use rituals, we'll use sigils to control them, but we don't ever want a person. So their thought process behind Satanism is that their own God, the instant gratification. And I don't particularly align with that because I do believe that instant gratification comes at a cost, but that's okay. But it was interesting to see that they still believe in demons, but at the same time, they don't want other people to get possessed. So I just thought that was a nice tidbit of information because you had mentioned that. So every religion around the world has its form of exorcism rites. And I would be a fool to think that as a priest, as a Catholic priest, that I can go in and perform oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Stephanie, I'm gonna an Islamic exorcism. I'm not an imam. I do not have that spiritual authority in that sense. I do have a spiritual backing in my creator, but I don't have the spiritual authority of Allah because I don't believe in Allah. I do believe he was a prophet, and I do believe that the Muslim tradition is a beautiful tradition, belief system, but I can't go in there performing an exorcism because it doesn't. I don't identify with that. Those demonic entities or negative energies, or even neutral entities, identify with that, like the jinn.
Yeah.
The jinn for us, we call it demon, but at the same time, in the Middle Eastern cultures, it's viewed as a neutral deity. It can be like a trickster kind of demon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like you would never send me into a Catholic home to help cleanse it because they don't believe in what I would be doing.
No, but I would still send you in because there's a power of the intention there. There's a power of the intention, and you're performing your ritual for a positivity. Now, I would then, in there, through my belief system, be supporting the imam in the family through my prayer, through my interpretation, through my expression of faith, which is highly important. It's always important to express your faith, no matter what it is. And I do think that because of the good intention that is behind it, that surrounds it, it can be an effective tool. But to combat it directly, I think it would be unwise and it would be unethical on my behalf to do that, because then I would put the family more in jeopardy. That would be more of a liability.
Right.
But what do I know, right?
Yeah, who knows? Well, I can't believe the show's almost over.
Already?
My how time flies.
Yeah.
Can you let everyone know real quick again where to find you?
So you can find me at fatherkendoctor.com. You can also find me at the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. I do have a paranormal group called the Paranormal Connection. And then I have a Facebook business page called Archbishop Ken Doctor, just like that, simple. Kept it simple for everybody. But Father Ken Doctor is the most important place you can contact me. I do angelic healing. I do pastoral counseling. I'm a chaplain. And I do spiritual abuse counseling as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully I can have you on again soon. It's always
Anytime.
It's always fun chatting with you. And again, thank you everyone for watching. You can find me on Facebook at Heather Leigh or Dr. Heather Leigh, and it's Dr. Heather Leigh, or you can find my website, which is heatherleighphd.com. I'm also with the Warren Foundation. And as always, you can watch our shows here. We do have a YouTube channel. Just search for WLTK-DB on YouTube, and you can find all of our past replays on YouTube. And then, again, a reminder, we will not be here next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks. So I will see you guys later. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everyone. Be blessed.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.